Hello and welcome to our program. We have now entered February, the month of a planned summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump. Last year, the peace process on the Korean Peninsula quickly gained momentum with the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in February. There may be similar sequence of events this year. On this week's special Lunar New Year's episode, we will discuss the prospect of denuclearization talks in February. Here's what we have for you today.
On this week's A Road to Peace, we discuss the reasons behind Pyongyang's new appointment of an envoy to lead working-level negotiations with Washington ahead of the second summit. Lastly, we meet a North Korean defector turned businessman as he shares his New Year's wish.
For today's discussion, we're joined by Professor Kim Hyun-wook of the Korean National Diplomatic Academy. Happy to see you again, and Happy Lunar New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump recently temporarily ended the government shutdown. Can we see some more preparations gain speed for the next North Korea-U.S. summits?
Yes, the shutdown this time lasted for about 35 days. I think this is the longest shutdown in the history of the United States. I think there have been many reasons why he came up with a temporary end of shutdown. Economy of the United States is getting worse, and his popularity in political sense is getting worse. Within the Republican Party, a lot of senators and congressmen are having different ideas and views about President Trump. A lot of negative views are arising. And also, important thing is that his policy implementation is getting more and more difficult. U.S.-North Korea summit requires a government budget in the aspect of logistical issues, escort, protocol. And if they're in the situation of shutdown, I don't think it's easy for President Trump to bring a lot of government people to some place in Southeast Asia for a summit meeting. Maybe President Trump can do something by way of declaring a state of emergency, in which case he can bring a lot of budgets for other purposes to the purpose that he wants to use it for. But that's the emergency case, not a normal situation. And I think the shutdown situation and ending the shutdown definitely would be good for the preparation of the summit meeting.
Now, would you say that North Korea was perhaps happy about the government shutdown because it gives North Korea more time to, maybe create a plan for the next summit?
I don't think it's good for North Korea. If the shutdown goes on, President Trump, I think, his political stance domestically in the United States is getting worse and worse. Now, President Trump is very positive about the North Korea-U.S. summit. I think he's trying to be very good friend with Kim Jong-un, have very good relationship with North Korea, wants to have more, positive process in denuclearizing North Korea. I think he's very rosy about the future of this kind of process. But more important incentive for him for his talk with Kim Jong-un is domestic purpose. Now his popularity inside the United States is getting worse. I think at the end of this year, sometime this fall, he has to jump into the next election, presidential election, which begins early next year. But election mode begins from sometime this fall and winter. So I think he has to do something He needs some kinds of momentum to make him ready for a next president again. And one of the important bargaining chip that he can use in the United States is, denuclearizing North Korea, North Korean deal. But if things get worse, if shutdown gets more, procrastinated, I think he will be in a worse situation. Maybe sometimes North Korea issue might not be the one that he can use anymore. Even though he says domestically, I've done this, I have done many things, reducing threats from North Korea, maybe no one would listen to him anymore. Good thing for North Korea is to make President Trump be a popular president inside the United States.
Now, another problem that President Trump may be facing back at home is that, well, there are reports that Trump is preparing to make the concessions that North Korea has been demanding. And if this takes place, a lot of politicians within the country will be opposed to President Trump's policy towards North Korea. So how will this affect the upcoming second summit?
I don't think President Trump really cares about that. I mean, for now, he's trying to make this summit very successful. Even though partly not successful, but he will say that it has been a very successful summit anyhow. Domestically, yes, he has a very high purpose, it's high stake and important purpose to make it successful for the domestic political reason. And I think he will try to go for the summit meeting. I think there are a lot of good coordinations within the President Trump government and also with North Korean counterpart about the concrete agreement in the summit meeting. I think this time he should come up with a very concrete agreement and outcome of the summit meeting. If this summit is the same as the last one, which he does not really have had a very good agreement, but the first summit was successful because the meeting itself was a very historical one. But this time he has to come up with a very concrete outcome about the denuclearizing North Korea. He's trying to make a deal. Even though there comes some criticism domestically, I think the purpose of summit is to overcome that criticism. So I think I don't think he would really care about that.
Now, Washington has already made some conciliatory gestures toward North Korea ahead of the summit, and U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton, who is very well known for his hawkish stance towards North Korea, said that the U.S. can lift some sanctions that are placed currently against North Korea if, quote, there is a significant sign of a strategic decision to give up nuclear weapons. What do you make of this?
I think the U.S. has been demanding North Korea many times that there should be some significant denuclearization so that the U.S. would give something to North Korea. So the original attitude and idea was, okay, U.S., you do something about denuclearization and we'll give you good incentive. So it was a very comprehensive approach, which is different from the North Korean approaches. North Korea wants a step-by-step, simultaneous measures. But I think the U.S. posture is changing very much compared to the original policies. Now, the U.S. is kind of coalescing with what North Korea has been demanding and kind of agreed that there should be step-by-step issues. Special Representative Steve Biegun also have agreed that if there is some significant denuclearization measures by North Korea, I think the U.S. can also, give some initial, sanction liftings for North Korea. But as your question, what is that significant measures of denuclearization of North Korea that would guarantee the concessions by the United States? The U.S. has been continuously arguing that declaration and verification and disablement and dismantlement, they are the full roadmap for the denuclearization. So as first steps, U.S. has been demanding declaration and verification. But North Korea is very firm that declaring what the nuclear capabilities and nuclear weapon systems are in North Korea. That would mean that North Korea is giving the target for military strikes by the United States. So denied all that kind of declaration issues. So next one is verification. North Korea has promised that they would bring the inspectors for the missile test site destruction. And also think that the U.S. is demanding that inspectors should go into the Punggye site, a nuclear test site, which has been already destroyed. And also Yongbyon facilities, there should be inspectors in there. And if possible, maybe the U.S. would like to have ICBM production, facilities to be destroyed. And also in that part also, there should be inspectors to go in. So many sites destroying, shut down, they need inspectors go in there and get verified. I think that will be something that Bolton is implying. If that verification issue is very clear, I think the U.S. would give something to North Korea about the sanction lifting.
Now, speaking of U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, we are seeing some change in his counterpart. We believe his counterpart was North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee, but there are reports saying that it's Kim Hyok-chol, who is North Korea's former ambassador to Spain. What do you make of this change in position?
As I mentioned, the verification issue, I think, is an important part. That requires very expert knowledge and capabilities. Kim Hyok-chol has an experienced nuclear disarmament. He has been dealing with disarmament issues, arms reduction issues. So I think he has some expertise on these. But Choi Sun-hee does not. Choi Sun-hee is U.S. experts, has been very good negotiator with the United States, but I don't think she's an expert about the arms race and arms reductions and disarmament issues and nuclear disarmament issues. So when two countries go into the details about the verification issues, I mean, the verification is, there are a lot of issues about the verification. The depth of verification, the width of verification, the methods for verification, what kinds of verification is something that would make the verification very efficient. Sampling should be distracted, and what kind of sampling, how much sampling, and then where to sample it. So all these kind of things require some, previous knowledges and experiences. So I think in that sense, appointing Kim Hyok-chol for this spot means that North Korea is ready for a detailed talk about the verification. So I think, the U.S. side also would need someone like that. I mean, Stephen Biegun, I don't think he has any experience about all the kind of detail, the disarmament area. And I think the U.S. will need someone who can, support Biegun, who has an expertise in this area.
And U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo recently said in an interview that the next Kim-Trump summit is going to take place within the next 60 days. So does that mean that preparations are underway?
The thing is that the reporter asked a very silly question. Would that be held within 60 days?
Very vague.
Yes, and I would say yes instead of no. But the interpretation of that response was that, that means that the summit can be held at the end of March instead of February. But I don't think it doesn't really matter. I mean, the summit can happen at the end of February, early March, mid-March. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if it's held like 6 months later, that will be a problematic. But I don't think 1 month, 2 month difference is just possible as two countries come and coordinate and logistical issues. Many trivial issues can adjust the date of summit. So I don't think it really matters. Important thing is that I think there have been a report by the intelligence agency in Korea that two countries are finally coordinating about the sentences and contents of, I think it was, common declaration.
Which means it is going to take place.
Yes, yes. So I think that means that they have come up with a basic agreement. Of course, there might be some differences. Differences will be blanked in the agreement, which should be filled in by two leaders. But as far as the basic ones that have been agreed already, they're just making agreement. So those things are no problem. Leaders come up and they decide and they fill the blank, and there will be complete agreement. So that means I think it will be not soon.
Now, establishing a peace regime is one of the Moon administration's top priorities for the country. But then again, it's being overshadowed due to the denuclearization talks between the different parties. How do you think this will be achieved in the near future?
I think at some point it should go together. I mean, of course, the end point of discussing and signing the peace treaty should be the point in which North Korea completes denuclearization. But I think the talk itself should begin sometime in the middle of denuclearization. So I think when the leaders agree upon the roadmap for denuclearization and their promises about some initial steps of denuclearization and sanction lifting, I think at some points they have to make some detailed, arrangements about when to have talk about the peace regime, when those parties relevant to the armistice would come and talk. So I think at some points you have to go together with each other. You know, North Korean denuclearization talk and also peace regime talk. I think they have to go together. And as you mentioned that, I think the issue of peace regime should evolve with some relevant parties. I think 4 countries are directly related. If North Korea and South Korea speaks to each other, okay, this is our problem. This is about the future of the Korean Peninsula. Let's forget about the armistice. Let's forget about the peace regime. And then we can just talk and we can just decide by ourselves. This is our matters. But there are a lot of complex calculations that North Korea has, and also South Korea. North Korea definitely needs to have a support by China when they talk about a lot of issues. For example, even though they just finish some amount of denuclearization, there should be some economic support. And they don't trust Trump. I mean, how can President Trump give huge amount of money for North Korea? I think the only country that can support huge economic support for North Korea is China. So North Korea definitely needs China. Okay, you support me, and I'll make you partner, and I'll make you responsible player for the peace regime. So China is jumping. But South Korea also needs to consolidate the U.S.-LOK alliance. So we need the United States. So complex calculation is pretty much, involved in the talk and process of a peace regime in the Korean Peninsula. So that's why we need some, multiple talks and mechanism. But otherwise, we don't need them. We can just talk each other in North-South Korea, forget about peace regime, but we need some kinds of interests. We need to guarantee our interests. So that's why it's getting wider and becoming multilateral.
So we're on a very, very tight schedule on the Korean Peninsula. Well, let's move on to a lighter note this time. The Lunar New Year holiday is a time when families gather together to share a special meal and spend quality time with each other. Ahead of the holiday, a group of North Korean defectors in Seoul gathered together for a special celebration. Here's more on the story.
The Lunar New Year, or Seollal, is one of the biggest holidays in South Korea. This year, it falls on February 5th. It's a time when families come together to enjoy a bowl of tteokguk, or rice cake soup, and wish each other blessings for the new year. The weeks before the Lunar New Year are among the busiest of the year for the retail industry. This dried fish retailer in Seoul is no exception. The shop is owned by Lee Dae-sung, a North Korean defector who came to the South in 2008. After several jobs and 5 years into the retail business, he now has 4 employees.
노가다도 현장 일도 좀 하고 기자 생활도 또 거의 한 1년 해봤고 저는 탈북 전에도 군부대 수산물 사업을 하면서 여러 가지 무역 사업에 많이 관여했는데요. 또 그 경험이 지금 오늘 이 사업을 하는데 많은 도움이 되고 있습니다.
The popular bar snack in the north is still unfamiliar to many South Koreans. Lee saw the potential for selling the North Korean food in the South Korean market, thinking it would also suit local palates.
이 짝태라는 말의 유래가 북한으로부터 시작해서 중국으로 거쳐서 지금 오늘날 이 한국에 지금 정착하고 있는데 짝태는 사람마다 기호성이 다르겠지만은 제가 보건대는 지금 혼술족들이나 가정에서 즐기는 이 안주나 밑반찬감으로는 최상의 상품이라고 생각합니다. 그래서
Years of hard work is beginning to pay off for Lee. Sales have shown steady growth, and he has been providing jobs to fellow North Korean defectors.
사업에 대한 희망을 가지고 창업을 해가지고 이 나라에 빨리 정착할 수 있는 그 기틀을 좀 마련해 주는 게 그리고 또 사회적으로 비난받지 않고 또 너무 외톨이 되는 그런 현실이 그 사람들한테 다가서면 안 되니까 그런 취지에서 우리 채용하고 있습니다.
It's still the peak season for the business ahead of the holiday, but he decided to take the time to invite his employees over. For defectors, holidays can be a painful reminder of loneliness and the lives they left behind in the North. He thought preparing and eating food together will be a great way to cheer them up and celebrate the special occasion.
북한에서 소리에 해먹던 만두, 북한식으로 말하는 만두를 지금 빚는 건데 모양이 없어서 제가 아마 자식 보기 이게 왜 잘 안 되는 모양입니다.
He says nothing feels more like Lunar New Year than shaping the dumplings with his family. He recalls the taste of dumplings he ate in the North around this time of the year.
딱 당일날에 만드는 게 아니고 한 2, 3일 전에 다 빚어서 겨울에 밖에다 내놔요. 올 껐다가 다시 째 먹으면 그 맛이 더 좋거든요.
On Lunar New Year, North Koreans eat mandukguk, which is a variety of tteokguk that includes dumplings. The dumplings' stuffing is also different from what South Koreans are used to.
여기 콩나물도 숙주나물, 네, 숙주나물도 들어가고 그 계란도 들어가고 하는데 북한식에는 보통 저 숙주하고 계란은 안 들어가요. 두부하고 고기 들어가고 김치가 들어가고 기본적으로 그렇게 들어가요.
The defectors sit around a table full of delicious dishes, from dumpling soup and boiled pork slices to lettuce for wraps. The food brings back memories of home.
부모 생각 엄청 나는데 부모님들 여기 안 오시지 않아가지고 저 돌아가셨어요 다. 그래가지고 이 말이 항상 부모님 생각나더라고요. 그 솔직히 이렇게 같이 모여 앉아서 고향 음식 먹으니까 자꾸 기분 좋고 더 기분이 좋고 그럽니다.
They are happy to share a special meal, reminisce about home, and make holiday memories in a new land. We asked what Lee Dae-sung is wishing for in the new year.
통일이 됐을 때 내 고향으로 갔을 때 비전이나 마인드를 줘가지고 내가 그 사회나 또는 뭐 그 사람들한테 어느 일만큼이라도 뭐 그 도와줄 수 있는 그런 경험자로 자라는 게 지금 제가 지금 현재 꿈꾸는 건 그겁니다. 뭐 저는 꿈을 크게 꾸지는 않습니다.
He has found a new life as a businessman offering a taste of North Korea in the South. We hope he gets his wish of bridging people together in a unified Korea.
Because of the decades-long separation between the two Koreas, there have been a lot of differences in customs and culture, but we do still, both Koreas still celebrate New Year's. But the difference is that while we also celebrate Lunar New Year's here in the South, North Korea mostly puts the focus on the New Year's, January 1st. Can you tell us more about that?
I think the traditional New Year holiday in North Korea has been pretty much weakened by, celebrating the national holidays. For example, the birthday of Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung, and now Kim Jong-un, and also national holidays, for example, the date celebrating the establishment of the Working Party, establishment of the National Army, something like that, which are all related to the current North Korean regime. So that's primary holidays for North Korea. But traditional holidays, for example, Seoul, which is a Lunar New Year Day, and Chuseok, all that kind of things still exist in North Korea, but pretty much overshadowed by national holidays in North Korea. As you mentioned that I think in North Korea, they celebrate the New Year holiday, January 1st, instead of Lunar New Year. I think it was Kim Jong-il or Kim Il-sung, the leader of North Korea, once mentioned that that's some kinds of superstition, kind of worshiping, superstition worshiping. So let's remove that, just come back to the January 1st, New Year. So I think in North Korea, the regime itself is kind of removing all the religious and superstitious behaviors of North Korean people. So I think the reason why they're sticking to the January 1st is, I think, the same sense as that. That's just removing that.
And they only have 1 day off, right? I mean, for us in South Korea, we get more days off of the lunar holidays, and it's kind of making me grateful that we get to rest this long. Well, I do hope that conditions get better because holidays are, after all, a time for fun and enjoyment.
Yes.
Well, Professor Kim, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today, and Happy New Year's again.
Oh, Happy New Year. Thank you.
New Year's traditions vary from country to country and home to home, but one thing that remains the same is that it's a time to connect with loved ones. This is where we wrap things up. Happy Lunar New Year to our viewers, and do enjoy the holidays. Thank you for watching.